This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Hello there, welcome to Six Tackles with Gus. We are coming to you a day later than normal for a couple of reasons, which we'll elaborate on. But on the show today, we are going to relive some of the great commentary moments of our mate Ray Rabs Warren, who has decided he's going to step away from live broadcasting. That announcement was made yesterday. We'll have a look at Origin 1-2, which is less than a week away now. A bit of six-tackle trivia, and we've got a stack of Ask Gus questions as well, and there are some beauties in there. How you doing, Gus?
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
I'm very good, thanks. Now, you've been a little bit poorly again, and so we gave you an extra day so you could stop coughing. That was the first reason that we decided to bump it back 24 hours, but it worked out well because we would have missed the big announcement if we'd have done this yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we all knew that day was coming eventually, but a bit of a shock when it happened the way it did yesterday, and Ray Warren's decided to call it a day. He won't be lost to Channel 9, of course. He'll be doing a lot of work with us behind the scenes and in production and those types of things as well, and that's great that we'll have him around. But so far as play-to-play calling in the commentary box, he will finish with the great grand final call last year of the Panthers winning the premiership, and a wonderful note on which to finish, but it is just a long list of great memories that he's given us over a long period of time.
55 years he's been at it. What an amazing career. Started his career in Junee in radio in 1966, which amazingly, Gus, was alongside the great Ken Sutcliffe, and they both ended up as mainstays of the network here for so many years.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of our greatest media performers have come out of that era over across a number of sports, and Ray Warren was certainly amongst the very best of those, and he had great mentors coming through. He spoke about the people that helped him early in his career and the opportunities that he got, and as you well know, making your way in the media world is up and down in the early stages until you establish yourself, but it wasn't long before Ray Warren's potential was realised by those that knew what they were looking for, and he was at the forefront of commentary, not just in football, in sport, but Olympics, Commonwealth Games, Melbourne Cups. He was a wonderful race caller. He was a greyhound caller. I can remember as a kid sitting up, and they used to have those Saturday night variety shows, and they'd show the last 4 races from Harold Park and Wentworth Park greyhound races, and Ray Warren would be calling those back in the day. He called me playing football back in the day, and I remember that. And in the 80s, we used to go back to the club for a beer after the game, and that was one of the great social things about playing rugby league back in that era, that in the 70s and 80s, and I suppose before that too, you'd go back to the opposition Leeds club and have a few beers. And players from both clubs would sit around and have a beer, and they would try to commentate like Ray Warren the moments of the game. And, it was he's been around for a long time. He's a very, very important part of our history.
Run around to the hooker. Short ball to Keith Galloway, and Keith Galloway looks like he might have just about made it.
Stand up, baby.
We're all standing.
Everyone's standing.
Everybody get up.
Big Keith Galloway.
Keithy.
Now, I told you last weekend they should have used him closer to the line. Keithy paws onto a pass from Robbie Farah, and as only great try scorers do.
I think he's dropped it, Gus.
No, they can't take it off him.
You sure?
They can't take it off him.
What did the ref say?
As only, he said try.
He's dropped the ball, Gus.
No.
We've gone off half-cocked.
No.
Sit down. There is no party.
No, Keithy. Keithy. Oh, Keithy. What have you done?
You're the only one standing now. Sit down.
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.
Sit down. No try.
Dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.
What a shame. We put so much energy into that. What a waste of energy. Even David Middleton stood.
And he bobbles it near the line. Look at this.
There you go. Keithy Galloway with Rabs and Gussie.
Big blockhead front rower dropping the ball over the line.
I was going to say the bunkers ruined it again,
Yeah.
But it was pretty obvious he dropped that one. But you had a great, and still do obviously, have a great friendship, but a great on-air connection with him, and it was always wonderful when you two came together. There was always a bit of banter, good-natured banter.
Yeah, I've known Ray for a long time. I mean, I first met Ray through our love of horse racing and frequenting the racetracks back in our younger days, and I got to know him really well. And then he used to call a number of our football games, and then I went into coaching, I've had a great relationship since, but it's obviously at Channel 9 where we spend a lot of time together. And as I've said in the last 24 hours, Rabs has been the captain of our commentary team here for over 30 years. And, when we came into it, people like Paul Vaughton and Peter Sterling, who were the originals, and I had the good fortune to join them later on. But, we were just buff-head footballers. We weren't media people, and he showed us the way. He mentored us. He took us under his wing and really taught us the industry. And he was always big on entertainment. He said people come home Friday night after a long week and they want to have a bit of dinner, have a bit of work, and they want to watch the football but also be entertained. And as you know, some games aren't always as entertaining as you'd like. The football isn't as great as it should be, or the score blows out, and you've got to find different ways to amuse ourselves and keep the thing bubbling along. And Ray was great for theatre. He had wonderful humour. He had wonderful theatre, and he was willing to debate. Provided he was right, of course.
Yeah.
He had to be right all the time.
Well, he wasn't wrong about the rules, was he?
No.
Knows the rule book inside out, back to front.
Yeah, so he said. He used to carry a rule book with him just to argue with me. But there was a very early on when the video referee first started. You remember the video referee used to be at the game. We didn't have a bunker, and they used to have that red and white light. That no try or try. And in those days, the people at home could not hear the video referee contemplating or going through his process. Now we play it for them so they can hear what he's thinking. But in the early days, that wasn't played to the audience, but we could hear it in our ears. We could hear the video referee going through his process of what was going to happen. So I can't remember who it was, but the wingers dived over in the corner, and it's one of those ones where his hands sort of turned and the ball's flopped out to the side. And I said, no try. That's not a try. That can't be a try. He's lost control of that. There's no way in the world that's a try. Can't be a try. Then that's not going to be a try. Rabbits, what do you think? And of course, Ray doesn't say a word. Rabbits, what do you think? Come on, it's no try. There's no control there. No, he hasn't controlled that. There's no way in the world I could give that. It's not a try. Well, Ray's not going to say a word until he hears what the video referee says down his ear. So Ray said, and all of a sudden, after about 30 seconds, the video referee says, I think there's downward pressure. And the minute he says that, Rabbit says, well, I don't know, Gussie boy. There's a thing in the rule book called downward pressure. It's got nothing to do with control.
Clever.
And if you ever read the rule book, you'd know about these things. Well, now I know I'm wrong, and I know he's going to be right. But I've got a stick. And I'm saying, I'll jump out of the grandstand. I'll jump out of the grandstand if they award this. He has lost control of this. Not about control, Gussie. You've got to read the rule book. You're supposed to be a coach, and you don't even know the rules. And he would get into me about the rule book, and of course the green lights come up, try, And he said, told you, just put another blue pill under your tongue, son. Just sit down there and shut up. And so they kick the goal, and we go to the ad break, and he leans over and taps you on the leg. He said, that was great, son. He said, remember, I've got to be right. I've got to be right, he said. So that was our relationship.
Yeah. Very good. 99 Origin games. Same number as the great Don Bradman.
Yeah, well, it's a good number to retire on, isn't
it?
But we will remember every one of them. That's the thing. I mean, every moment, every day spent in the commentary box with him was an experience. And the one thing I keep coming back to, even when I played and right throughout all the eras, there are so many great moments in this game, so many great moments for individual players where they've enjoyed, wonderful moments in their own career. And it's all been caught through the eyes and the emotion and that unmistakable voice of Ray Warren. And you relive it in your own mind in those terms. The parents and grandparents and relatives of players that are in the game that are taping games on TV to listen to Ray Warren calling their son playing football or their nephew playing football or their grandson playing football. And that's just not our sport. What he did for swimming and what he did with racing and in other sports as well. Phenomenal moments in Australian sport that are captured with the imagery of this wonderful voice, and they wouldn't be as dramatic. It wouldn't be as emotional with him. And sometimes, and I've got to say, like there were times at different times in commentary where he would suddenly get so excited and he would capture the emotion and the intensity and the gravity of something that was happening right there in front of us, and he would articulate it so perfectly. And honestly, I would sit there and realise that I was in the presence of greatness, that it's not easy. And you would know better than anyone, being a commentator yourself, how hard it is to capture those moments sometimes and get it absolutely right. But in the really big moments of our game, he never faltered. He got it right the whole time. He loved it. He had this beautiful thing he used to call light and shade. He would If the crowd wasn't excited, he figured he shouldn't be excited either. But as the play got closer to the try line, or he could feel something building, he knew the game well. He had a great awareness. He could tell when something was about to happen. You could feel it, and he could build it through his voice and his emotion, and he would hit the right pitch at the right time. And the other times he could be very laconic and just conversational, and he could have a laugh and a joke for you. And he knew when the football wasn't entertaining and we had to do other things. And he was wonderful that way. He was a great friend, great mentor. He was a leader of our team, and as I say, he'll be sadly missed. He'll still be around us. He'll be here doing some production work, and we need that big voice over the top of a lot of our packages that we do, and because it gives us such emotion. And
well, his voice
so
is synonymous with what we do here at Widewater Sports.
Well, it is. It's the voice of rugby league. There's no doubt about that, and it's a big hole to fill. And of course, with Origin next week. I guess, a young man in your position, one door closes, another one opens. You're going to call the Origin next week for Channel 9, and that's another stepping stone in your career as well. So you must be excited about that.
Oh, hugely excited! Yeah. I can't wait. It's I'm not under any illusions about the gravity of the task, mind you. I'm coming into bat after Bradman, as they say, but I'll just sort of call the game as I call the game, and I've got a great team of experts around us. And look, I mean, the job of the commentator, as you've said, and as Rabs has lived throughout his career, is to really reflect and champion what the players do on the field. And you don't really need to add too much to what they do in Origin, because the football's so superhuman, and so they're the best players in the game. So you just got to sit there and try and convey to the viewers exactly what they're doing, and I'll just do my best to do that.
There are big moments in games. There might be conversion kicks or penalty kicks or different things, and it was such a great team. Fatty and Sterlo, who'd worked with him so often, and myself, and we worked with each other so often, that there was an understanding that those big moments we had to get out of the way, because it had to be Ray that called them. And he wasn't opinionated. He didn't give opinions on much. And he would give an opinion on a ruling because he knew the rule book, but he wouldn't give opinions necessarily on why something happened. But he would describe what had happened, and then he'd leave it up to Fatty and Sterlo and your Andrew Johnses and Billy Slaters and Brad Fittlers and Darren Lockyers and Wally Lewises these days to paint the pictures. But phenomenal. And such a great bloke too. I mean, as you know, we spend a lot of time together travelling and in and around grounds, and a lot of downtime waiting for football games and being in hotels and planes, trains and automobiles getting to and from ground. So it's a lifestyle, and it's something that's far more entertaining when you're doing it with someone you love. And Ray Warren the travel was always fun with Ray because he was so neurotic about it. And, there was so many quirks to the man. It's not funny, but
actually, what we have to do in our podcast notes at the bottom here is put a link of that article you wrote about your helicopter trip on the Gold Coast. That's honestly the funniest thing of all time. About you had to get the plane was late and you had to get the heli. Oh my God!
It was one of the most read columns of the. And what happened was Ray hated flying. He just hated flying, and he would try to come up with any excuse not to fly. Right. And this day, and he wouldn't fly before midday because they wouldn't allow him to have a scotch on the plane before takeoff, because they wouldn't serve alcohol before midday.
Right.
So we always had to be on the plane after midday, so he could have a beverage, just to settle his nerves before the flight. So we're going up for a 3:00 kickoff at the Gold Coast, and we're on like a 12:05 plane, so we can't get on before midday because he can't have a tipple just to settle the nerves.
Flight anyway.
So anyway, there are high winds or something in Sydney, and planes are being delayed, and all of a sudden the door has been left ajar for Ray not to have to travel. So he's sitting there at the airport, frantically ringing the people here at Channel 9 saying, "Oh, it's too windy, this plane's going to be delayed, we're not going to get there in time. We may as well call it from Willoughby. We'll go across there, set up a TV, and I'll call it off the screen." And they're saying, "No, Ray, the Qantas are saying that we'll get this plane off the ground. We'll get up there in plenty of time to call the game." So as it's going on and on, I'm sitting there with my iPad, and I've got to write a column for the next morning, Sydney Morning Herald. And I write a column on the game, how the game went that afternoon. So we'd call the game, and I'd write a column on the game and then send it off to the Herald. So I start writing a column about Ray trying to get out of this flight to Queensland. He doesn't want to fly to the Gold Coast. And I'm talking about how he's ringing Channel 9, he's doing this and doing that, and the excuses he's giving. And so finally it gets around to about, 1 o'clock, 10 past 1, 1:15. And we're definitely not going now. We've got to call the game from Willoughby. We'll get across there. So then they tell him, no, the flight's on. We're going to fly. You're cutting it fine. Doesn't matter. They're going to hold the game up. We're going to hold up the NRL game for Ray Warren in commentary. They don't care what time he gets there. They'll kick off when he gets there. Beautiful. So we fly to Gold Coast Airport, and he's in the plane, and he's talking, and I'm taking notes and writing it all down. And then I get a note, I get a text message just as we land in Gold Coast that there'll be a helicopter waiting to get us from the Gold Coast to the ground. And
so did you?
So if Ray was going to be scared to be on an aeroplane, a helicopter was just so Ray getting out of the plane. So as soon as we've landed, the hostess has come to us and said, Mr. Warren, Mr. Gould, your transport's waiting downstairs. So Ray gets out of the plane thinking it's going to be a hire car. Obviously, someone's going to hire car us up to the Gold Coast for this game. And we get out on the tarmac and there's no car there. He said, "Where's the car, darling?" He said, "No, there's no car." He said, "What are we doing?" She said, "We're flying up in that." And he looked over and saw this little helicopter there. He said, "What?" I said, "I'm not getting in that." He said, "No, we're going to go." So I said, "Come on, Ray, we'll be right. It's only 10 minutes, mate. We'll get up the road there." And I'm still taking notes and writing this column. And he's like, I don't know if you've seen those cartoons of trying to drag a cat out of a room. Like his claws are on the tarmac as they're trying to drag him towards this helicopter. And he's getting in and he says to the bloke, he said, "How often do these things come down?" The bloke said, "Only once." He said, "They're no good after that." So he's sitting in the front and I'm sitting in the back of the helicopter. It was only a little helicopter too. Anyway, this bloke takes off and he doesn't get up very high. All he does is he's kissing the treetops as we leave the Gold Coast Airport. And he's going up the highway towards the thing. And I've never heard of... I think the trip took about 13 minutes. I've never heard a man scream for 13 minutes. It was just one long, continuous scream. And I'm too old for this, and why are they doing this to me? And I didn't sign up for this. And so we finally land out on the back playing field at the Gold Coast Stadium as I just finished the last bits of my column. And we've got a golf cart waiting for us there. And the bloke's got a cold beer and a cold rag for him, so he's wiped down his face and he's had a beer. And we've gone up to the commentary box, and we've got there at 5 minutes before kickoff. We're ready to go, And I just finished my column, and I send it off to the Herald. That's my column for the day, the journey with Ray Warren. And I got him to read it before kickoff, and he turned around to me. He said, "You are a lunatic. You know that. You are a lunatic." And I said, he said, "That's the funniest thing I've ever read." And he called the game perfectly, never missed a beat. Yeah. It was hilarious.
We've got to find the column. It'll be online. We'll find it. It's brilliant.
And I think they did something on the Footy Show that week. It was like one of those.
I think they did too.
One of those war stories tried to describe what had happened.
With the soundtrack behind it.
Yeah. But he would like we'd get on a plane to go somewhere, and I would always travel with him. So, and he always had to be in seat 1A, which was good for me because I was sitting in seat 1C right alongside of him up the front of the plane, and just as we'd start to taxi down the runway to take off, he would text message his wife and say goodbye, that we're going to die, we're going to be killed in a car. And I'd say, "Geez, you're a joy to travel with, Rabs." Like, he was convinced.
Every week.
He convinced the plane was going to come down every time. So, of course, later in life, he wouldn't fly. He drove everywhere. So he would drive to Brisbane, he would drive to Melbourne, and it would take him a week. He'd have to have a stop off over here and a stop over there. And Channel 9 looked after him very well over the years. He used to live out in the Hills district out here, and we used to call Friday night football at the Sydney Football Stadium, and traffic around the city could be pretty hectic, So what he used to do, he used to get himself a room at the Star Casino for Fridays so he could beat the traffic. I said, "How's that beating the traffic?" He said, "I can come in earlier, I can have a sleep, and then that beats the traffic." I said, "The traffic's from the casino to the stadium, not from Borkham Hills to the." Oh well, don't but that's okay. He was the best.
Now, last one. You could probably tell this story. What's the one where he was calling the races at Gosford and he missed the start because he was in the betting ring?
He was in the betting ring, yeah.
Didn't he come up halfway through the race and testing?
He was down in the betting ring and he backed a horse, a grey horse. I forget what the horse's name was, Matt Thompson, I don't know. And he hadn't looked at all the colours in the race. It was the only one he knew, but it was the one he backed. And he's supposed to be the course commentator, and next thing, everyone's out of the betting. They said they're racing. So he's gone running up the stairs, into the commentary box, and he's gone in, and the horses are just turning for home. And he's flicked the switch on. He's gone, testing. Yes, we're back on air. Thank you. Sorry for that short delay. And around the turner, Matt Thompson's now kicked 4 in front. Go home, you little beauty. Go home, you little beauty. He didn't know any other horse in the race. He hadn't looked at the colours, but he called the winner and he bluffed his way through it.
Rabbits.
His great obsession was parking. He had to arrange his travel and he had to arrange his parking. And the week leading up to the game, where are we going to park? And he had to park in the best spot with the nose of the car facing out so there'd be no traffic after the game. He had to be last in and first out wherever he went. And so this was a thing that went on for years and years about him arranging parking either at the ground or close to the ground so that we could get out, so we could get on the 6:10 flight rather than the 6:40 flight. Whatever he could save time, he was just obsessed with this sort of stuff. So when I was announced as general manager of the Panthers, as luck would have it that first week, we were playing a home game on a Sunday afternoon, which was a Channel 9 game, and Ray was coming out to call it. And so of course the first call I get on Monday morning, he says, General Manager. I said, yeah. He said, what's the parking situation? I said, mate, you've been parking at Panthers Stadium for years. I said, you park in the Trotting Club across the road. No. There's a little car park just outside the front entrance there. A little car park there. It fits about 8 or 10 cars. Why don't they ever put me in there? I said, well, that's for the people and production people at Channel 9. Well, you're the general manager. Can't you fit me in there right outside that front gate? I can turn up a little bit later and get away a little bit earlier. And I said, well, Ray, I really don't know. I said, general manager doesn't look after parking, but I'll make some inquiries. So I go and ask the girl what's happening. I said, can we fit him in that car park? She said, yeah. She said, well, we've usually got a spot available in this. I said, good as gold. So I've gone in and put the name on the list. I said, well, don't put Ray Warren, put Ray Hadley. And when he turns up, tell him you haven't got his name on the list or whatever. I said, when you let him in, when you finally let him in, he blows up and argues. I said, just put him in the handicap. There was one handicap spot they had over there in the corner, which no one ever used. I said, put him in the handicap parking zone over there. So of course, Ray, it's a 3 o'clock kickoff. Ray wants to turn up at 20 to 3. He wants to get there as late as he can. And he rolls up to the gate and winds down the window and he says, Ray Warren, Channel 9. The bloke looks at the list. He said, I haven't got a Ray Warren here. He said, Ray Warren, Channel 9, with the commentary. No. He said, I've got a Ray Hadley. He said, it's not Ray Hadley, it's Ray Warren. Ray Hadley's not coming. I'm Ray Warren. He said, I've only got Ray Hadley, mate. Sorry. Ring the general manager and find out. So they ring me, and I said, yeah, that's okay, Ray Warren. Sorry, I made a mistake there. It should have been Ray Warren, So they put him in the handicap parking zone. So I watch him park the car, and I come out from behind the Channel 9 trucks, and I take a photo with my phone of him parking in the handicap parking zone. And I go up into the commentary box about 5 minutes before kickoff, and I come in like I'm all frazzled. I said, stuff this. I said, I'm giving this job away. He said, well, I said, general manager, too much to do. I said, you've got idiots down there parking in handicap zones. I said, some girl's trying to get in there out of the... I said, this is terrible. I said, I've taken a picture of the car. I'm sending it off to the newspapers now, and I'm going to have this bloke... And he said, what are you talking about? I said, down in the car park. I said, look at this car. I said, it's in the handicap parking zone there. I said, I'm sending it off to them. That's my car, you lunatic. You can't be... They told me to park in that... Got him a beautiful...
Oh, that's too good.
Upset him before the game.
Oh, look, we're being serious. Look, this is the quirkiest bloke on the planet. Like, what he used to do, he used to do recce's the day before an Origin game at Suncorp to find out the fastest way to the ground with road closures.
Oh, yeah.
And he'd have a relationship with the police
yes.
to open the roadblocks to let him through.
So in the back way, when it's game night at Suncorp Stadium, they would block certain streets off. They would all have the traffic going one way. And Ray worked out that there was an avenue that he could come around the back where there'd be absolutely no traffic whatsoever, but there were police stationed on these blockades where you couldn't get through.
And they're relentless up there.
So I'd say to Ray, what time are we leaving for the game? He said, we'll leave about 6:15. I said, that's leaving a bit late, mate. The traffic's going to be better. No, we'll be right. We'll be right. So all of a sudden, he's rung the station sergeants during the week. He's rung the local police. He's rung the council. He's worked out where the blockades are, what's the fastest routes. So we would go through these 2 blockades. No one was allowed through it. And as you come up, they'd be waving the wand. Then they'd see it. They'd look in. They'd see it was Ray Warren. Oh, Ray, come up. And he'd come in. And he'd go, hello, son. How you going? How things going? But your boys get that beer down there, did you? Well, I sent that beer down there. And he said, yeah, you're right, Ray. Just go carefully up through there. It would take us 8 minutes, what should have been a 40-minute drive. And he would have the... It was incredible, the things he would do to Incredible.
He's brilliant.
Incredible. And he was neurotic, and he was hypochondriac. Like whatever was going around, he had. And if you came into the box and you were feeling poorly, he would open. He had a chemist shop in his bag. He had every medication that you could possibly have. Well, I've got this here for you. You take some of this and you take some of that. And you need to get this test. You need this X-ray. He had a medical degree somewhere. I don't know. While he was reading the rule book of rugby league, he also read the medical journals. He knew absolutely everything because he'd had every ailment. He felt
he's the best.
Everything was going to be anyway. What a wonderful man.
Yeah. I got some information sent to me from the people at Accor Stadium yesterday about various stats to do with the ground, etc. And it said, congratulations taking over the Origin gig from Rabs. I said, do I get to take his car spot now? He said, Rabs has told me that's mine until I die. He's got spot 1A right at the door. So I'll be in P1. But Rabs, what a wonderful broadcasting career. And I sent a tweet yesterday saying that if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be sitting here with Gus, and I certainly wouldn't be calling the football, because you inspired me and a whole generation of sports broadcasters, and you entertained everyone that has listened to you call footy or swimming or racing or whatever it might be. So congratulations. It's been a remarkable career, and there's never been a better sports broadcaster in Australia and probably around the world. So thank you for everything you've done for us here at Wide World of Sports. It's been a great career. Put your feet up and you can watch the Origin instead of having to worry about finding the fastest way to the ground.
He still texts me. Friday night I'll be calling the game and there'll be some bunker decision. He's texting me, "Shut up, you idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." And he's still texting me during the games. I love it.
That won't never end. That's our tribute to Rabs. We'll take a little break here on Six Tackles with Gus, and we'll talk Origin. We'll do some trivia and a few other bits.
I read his text messages in his voice. That's funny, that isn't it? Yes. When he texts me, I can actually hear his voice saying it.
Do you know what we need? We need to get. You know how you can set your GPS with someone's voice?
Yeah.
We've got to get one where it's his.
Yeah.
Turn left here, you gibberer.
No. I couldn't handle that.
In 200 metres, turn right, Gus. There's a copper down there. I'll bribe him to open the roadblock. It'll be sweet.
He'll have the blockade fixed. That'll be all right.
We'll have another listen to a couple of highlights of Rabs on the way to the break.
Rabbits, the fireworks are all at the Easter show. I go to the Easter show every year.
I understand that, but you were in love with this game about 20 minutes ago. Now you're attracted to the fireworks next door.
It's a tradition. I've got to have a toffee apple every year.
I can't keep up with you. Here's Robson putting the ball down.
Look at the fireworks, Rabbits. They're beautiful.
Jeez, take him away. Here's Turner. Well, there they are, Gus. That should satisfy.
Thank you.
Now give him his toffee apple and put him back in the corner. Here's David Stagford. Pritchard. Is there a case for the differential penalty to be extended?
It's not a bad call.
To the strips?
Yeah.
That might be the best idea you've ever had, Rabs. Where did that come from?
I've been thinking about it for a long time.
It's not a bad idea.
He's kicked the goal anyway. Never mind. Shut up. 20 points to 14 becomes 22 to 14.
I'm looking for Adam Cuthbertson. Hopefully he was going to get a run.
Got a nice Wide World of Sports jumper on there, Brad Fiddler. Been here 5 minutes, and you got one of those, Rabs? I haven't seen one of those.
I haven't seen a Channel 9 jumper since I joined with Darryl Eastlake back in '88.
Rubbish. You've got about 3 dozen in plastic folders in the boot of your car. Don't interrupt me. You've got them all in the boot of your car.
Soward playing the ball.
You've got 2 dozen in there. You've never
Stanley
opened.
for Gasnier.
Why don't you share them?
Why don't you shut up for a moment? 25 on Monday, Samuel. You've grown since you were born. You were born as 4 kilos. I was there when he was born. Midwife Rabbits.
Well, that would be a scary sight for your first introduction to planet Earth, wouldn't it? Looking up at the midwife Rabbits.
I reckon you'd want to hurry up.
I'd want to go back.
Oh, very, very good. We'll take a break. Six Tackles with Gus. We're heading into Origin. It's time to talk a bit of Origin 1. Harry Callaghan on Ask Gus says 2 cracking Origin teams. Gus, can you split them? Give us an early favourite.
No, I can't. I can't give you an early favourite. An early favourite with me is the Blues, obviously. I want to see them win, but this is a seriously good Queensland team. You know, and Origin is about Queensland, and it's about the quality of the Queensland team, and Billy Slater has done an excellent job on 100% footy the other night. Actually, congratulate him. I said, well done, mate. Like he's his first, not his first go in Origin, but his first go at coaching Origin and being responsible for the team that's going to wear these jerseys. And he's put together a really traditional Queensland side. And by that, they've got smart creativity and experience in the halves. They've got athleticism and speed out wide. Queensland sides, when they're at their best, have always got these great athletes out wide that can finish off tries and chase kicks and make things happen out of nothing. And they've got a really hard-working forward pack that won't get in the way. And by that I mean these blokes won't be out to be stars. They'll just be out to work as feverishly as they can in every aspect of the game all night and not get in the way of the playmakers. And it's up to the playmakers to make the outside backs the stars. They're the star makers. And that's the traditional Queensland team as I remember it. Really hard-working, no-nonsense forwards who didn't want to dominate the play, who didn't want to run the shapes and the plays and score the tries, that were just happy there to tackle, chase kicks, fall on loose balls, and do everything they could and put up a great defensive line and allow the halves to be creative. And, in Cherry Evans and Munster and Kalen Ponga, they're going to have some great creativity there. And look at these outside backs. They're not going to need much room to convert opportunities into points. They're all great finishers in their own right, and they're so athletic, either in the air, along the ground, from long distance. They can score long distance tries. So it's a formidable team. And New South Wales, obviously, which have had, pretty much they've been the better side for the last 3 or 4 years, apart from one victory there. But it's a good side too. It's probably not the side people would have anticipated 6 weeks ago, which I say every year. You've got to wait until the medical's done before you name your side. But you can't pick a bad side. You can never pick a bad Origin side. It mightn't be the one you first thought of, but the good thing about it is that it's very well balanced, and I like the look of it. I can't split them, I've got to be honest. And there's such a premium on this first game for New South Wales because they only play the one. You don't want to be losing at home and then having to win,
up at Suncorp,
to get the series. So
the Queensland centres, Gus, they've struggled for centres the last few years. Like they had Michael Morgan playing there, and they've tried to sort of manufacture some. Well, gee, Gagai and Holmes now. Like Holmes has turned himself into a world-class centre. That's an outstanding combination.
Well, they've even had Capewell and fellas like that, filling in there. Dane Gagai, who's been a standout winger for Origin, and obviously as he's getting older, more and more experience. And I keep saying centre is a position that takes a long time to learn to play really well and feel comfortable with, because they've got to make so many defensive reads and there's so much to that game. But Dane Gagai, we know, is a class player. And Valentine Holmes, who was, bounced around from being, at one time considered the world's best winger to wanting to be a fullback, to wanting to be an NFL player, to wanting to come back and resurrect his career. And he's found a home in that Cowboys side, quite content to play in the centres and feed off the back of the creativity and the go forward that team's creating for them. And I think he's now content in his own skin as to what he is as a footballer, and he's really made a fist of that. Now, you're going up a few levels here. This is Origin. This is another step up from NRL, and it will be difficult. But he's showing all the signs, and he's going to be up against a rookie too, in Katoni Staggs at this level. So they're going to be interesting battles, aren't they?
What do you think of the Crichton on the bench? And how do they get him into the game? Is he injury cover, or is there a strategic move there you can see?
I don't see any strategy there I think with HIA the way it is, and injuries and outside backs so hard to cover, and you've got to remember that sometimes you've got that back rower in your side that can fill in the centres and do a job for you. New South Wales don't really have that at the moment. So an Angus Crichton might have been a player that did that in previous series. He hasn't made this side. There's no one here in the back row that I would be thinking could even contemplate going out to play in the centres at this stage of their career. So they had to cover an outside back. And when you're doing a bench for Origin or big games, that's what you've got to take a gamble somewhere. The hardest ones to replace are obviously your dummy half, your halves, or outside backs, because your forwards are interchangeable. They can all fill in anywhere. But having those players that can play a couple of positions, or a forward that can defend as a centre, or a centre that's versatile is really advantageous. So last year they had Coruscant on the bench purely to cover for the 9 if the 9 got hurt. And that was just insurance. But it meant virtually you're working with 16 players, with your interchange. And they found that was taxing as well. So where they've taken the gamble here is that, A, they'll gamble that Damien Cook can get through the 80 minutes. B, both Jerome Luai and Cameron Murray have done some dummy half work before in the past, and Jack Whiten, who is named at centre, can play in the halves, so they can get that covered. But Stephen Crichton, through his education and development at the Panthers, can play wing, centre, left side, right side, in either position, fullback. And he can play fullback. So he covers virtually anything that happens in the outside backs, and he may not get on the field. That can happen, and I've done that myself. I've had players on the bench like that they get a token couple of minutes at the end of the game just to get them out there, but you haven't needed them during the course of the game. Steve Crichton might not play any football at all in this game.
Could Crichton come on and Whiten go to lock?
Whiten can play anywhere. Whiten covers a lot of positions. He can cover back row, depending what happens during the course of the game, and you really don't know. But I think they've done the right thing there. They've rolled the dice a little bit with Damien Cook. If Damien Cook was to get hurt early, it's going to hurt them.
Yeah.
Because they would have to cover it. Now, I don't think you'd want Jerome Luai spending a long time playing dummy half and in the middle, which means you'd have to put Cameron Murray there, which then affects your edge, So if it happened later in the game, or it got to a point where Damien Cook had done 60 tackles and was fatigued and they needed to try to get instigated, then maybe you pushed Jerome into dummy half for 10 or 15 minutes. I don't think you'd want him to spend any more than that in that position. But these are all things that the selectors consider when they sit down. My thing about the bench was, A, they all had to be 80-minute players. If someone gets hurt in the first minute and you need them out there for 79 minutes, well, you needed a bloke that could do it. I didn't pick bench players as bench players. I picked starters as bench players. And the second thing, I had to cover all the key positions and have a plan in place for whatever happened. And I can see the plan that New South Wales had got. They could have gone a different way. They could have put Coruscant on the bench and that would have covered all of that, but left themselves a little bit vulnerable in the outside backs. And you can do that. My perfect one was a Steve Menzies or an Angus Crichton has done it in previous years. Those forwards that can actually play in the outside backs and survive, which we just probably don't have one. Ryan Madison might have been the closest one to that, but in his first one in, that might have been a big ask. So I think they've covered what they can, and it's the same for. So the only team here with any strategy off the bench is Queensland, because everyone's going to be wondering when Harry Grant gets into the game. The rest of the bench for both sides, they'll just go out and blend into the action. You'll have to look at the numbers to see when they're out there, because their jobs won't change. They'll just go out and interchange for fatigue and energy and making sure they're keeping the defence line solid. And
Grant's an attacker. I had a look at the stats yesterday. He's played 9 club games. He's got 10 try assists this year.
Yeah, Harry Grant is the X factor in this off the bench. There's no X factor for New South Wales. There's no strategy here of someone to bring into a game. And again, I go back to sort of my times and that when you would have a Craig Wing or someone like that who you can inject into the game at different times, and they've done it with Kalen Ponga and they've done it with Sean Berrigan and they've done it with players like that over the years where they could fill in anywhere. They could be a half that could go out and play lock forward for a while, or they could be a fullback that go out and play lock forward and play 5'8". And
that's how Cherry Evans and Cronk started.
Yeah, exactly. So you can put them into the action strategically to take advantage of, or because you need points, or because what have you. But for me, Queensland they've got the only strategy here. They've got the only strategy players is Harry Grant. It was interesting they didn't start with him and went with Ben Hunt, who's not playing hooker for himself, but Ben Hunt has served Queensland so well so many times. Ben Hunt gives them coverage in the halves if something happens there and Harry Grant comes on. Harry Grant didn't play the last game for the Melbourne Storm, and it was understood he had groin problems. So maybe too, that's a little bit of protection around that. But
he's had the flu. He only got to camp yesterday.
Yeah, he has been effective coming off the bench in Origin, obviously, and he's the one big strategy play. He's that moment in commentary where you're going to be looking for when Harry Grant is injected. Asked Billy Slater on 100% footy the other night. Not that he's going to tell us he's a Queenslander.
Oh, hasn't he become a great deflector?
He's a coach. He's got the coach speak now.
Gives
he's got
zero now.
Nothing, Billy. But I said, look, will you have a strategy or will you just wait and see how the game unfolds? And he sort of said, yeah, we'll have a strategy and we'll just wait and see how the game unfolds. So we just repeated what I said. He gave us nothing.
We'll get him 5 before half time, won't we? You think?
Well, that's one option, depending how the game's flowing at the time. See how Harry Grant comes up. But he's the X factor. There's there's no X factor off the bench for New South Wales. It's just a continuation of hard-working forwards and Crichton to cover the outside backs. You're not doing anything strategically to try and fool Queensland or come up with a trick shot. But with Harry Grant, the whole complexion of the game changes if he comes to dummy half. You'll see Queensland change their focus the minute he comes onto the field.
It's an exciting game. You look at those two. I'm excited for Origin anyway, but just pumped at these two lineups. And the bloke I was doing a bit of research on Ruben Cotter yesterday. Do you know he missed 3 seasons in a row as a younger player because of ACL injuries?
Yeah.
I think he's played 30 NRL games now.
Yep.
Last week he played 64 odd minutes against Penrith and made 64 tackles. Like I can't wait to see him at a Queensland jumper. He'll throw himself at everyone, won't he? He's a ripper.
Well, again, he's a throwback to so many Queenslanders that they've had in that side over the years that are just tenacious and hardworking, and everything is team based. Everything they do is team based. They're selfless and they just get on and Dallas Johnson probably comes to mind as one that's similar. He's not a big man physically. He was more recognised as a hooker coming through, a hooker that could play lock. But now they've been throwing him out there in number 10 for the Cowboys. And he's been taking on the biggest players in the game and wearing them down very, very quickly and providing great leg speed through the middle of the ruck and running the ball hard. Again, it's another step up. If he goes making 60 tackles in Origin, he's going to feel them a lot more than 60 tackles in clubland. It's going to be different, but and I imagine he'll be a target to see whether he can rise to that new level, but he deserves his spot. And he's very, very typical of a Queensland selection. Like there's, Queenslanders cheer for those sort of blokes.
Yeah.
And he's that typical Origin mentality that, as Billy Slater said, we want those values in our team. We want people out there that express those values of team-based and team-minded action. So he deserves his spot. Good on him.
Who are you tipping? And by New South Wales by a squeak?
Well, I'd be doing field goal practice.
Oh, it feels that way, doesn't it?
I'd be doing field goal practice for both sides. I think that this could easily be decided by a one-pointer at the back end of the game. I can see these teams being very, very equal. There'll be pressure on the goal kickers to get it right. I can see this being a couple of tries all and maybe coming down to goal kicking or a field goal that decides it. I don't see much between them at all. So there's pressure on everyone, and that's what Origin is. That's the best of the best, and every part of your game is tested. And so many of these games come down to who can convert their tries from the sideline and who can kick the field goal when they need it. And so many great moments in Origin are around those goal kickers and those playmakers who stand up at the back end and come up with a big play, and they've all done it. The Thurstons, the Cronks, the Slaters, and all those sort of players. So I think I'm going to say New South Wales by 1, and I don't think I'll be far wrong.
So excited. It's going to be a wonderful series. June 8, Wednesday, June 8. Next Wednesday, live and exclusive here on 9, the only place you can watch Origin. Very, very excited to be able to call my first Origin. This is a wonderful game to start. 6 tackle trivia, Gus.
Don't peak too early, Matthew.
No,
I don't want you getting excited a week early.
I'm very excited.
Just settle down.
I'm excited, mate.
Settle down.
I got plenty in me. I got 5 Origin questions for you for 6 tackle trivia.
5 Origin questions.
Yep. Because I know how much you love Origin.
My brain's not that good.
The Broncos will supply 2 players to the New South Wales team for Game 1 next Wednesday. Katoni Staggs and Payne Haas. The last time they did this was back in 2001. Name the players.
Oh, crikey, I don't know. I wasn't in Origin at that time. 2001. Queensland is playing for New South Wales.
Broncos playing for New South Wales.
Broncos playing for New South Wales. The goal kicker, Michael, what's his name? He was the kid that got stitched up behind the end.
That was him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Michael.
I'll give you that, DeVere.
Michael DeVere. Bronco playing for New South Wales.
Where did he start his career? He finished it at Penrith.
Wow.
He's won a Clive Churchill medal.
Luke Prittis.
Correct. Well done. Of the players to contest next week's Origin 1, who scored the most tries?
In Origin?
Yep.
of the players down. I'll have to go back and look at the teams now. The players
Of the players to contest Origin 1, who scored the most Origin tries?
Dane Gagai.
Yes, Gussie boy, 11. Oh, this is good. Who has scored the most Origin points for New South Wales ever in a career?
Ever.
Yep. I was actually surprised by this.
Ever.
Yep. Most Origin points for New South Wales.
Ever.
Reckon he finished before you started coaching.
Michael O'Connor was a big point scorer back in the day.
Ding!
Very good.
Who's the oldest Origin debutant?
The oldest Origin this year?
No.
Ever. Was only recently.
Nope.
Wasn't it? Was it Craig Greenhill?
Nope.
The boy got sent off? No. Oldest Origin debutant. Queenslander, I think.
Yep.
Yep, I can see his face.
I don't think it's the person that you're thinking of. I'll give you a hint and I'll say you couldn't go any further back in Origin.
Wow. Arthur Beetson.
Arthur Beetson. 35 years, 168 days. And the last one. Who's won more Man of the Match awards, Wally Lewis or Cameron Smith?
Wally Lewis.
Wally Lewis, 8. Cameron Smith, 7. Gus Gould, 5 from 5. Fantastic. Mary Ellis, 24, on Ask Gus, which you can ask every Monday on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Love the atmosphere at Belmore yesterday. Can the Doggies play more games there?
No, it was a great look. Consider the Bulldogs where they've been for the last few years, and with COVID, and they haven't been at home and they haven't been around, and off to Queensland last year, and they've run last year and 15th the year before, and they're running last at the moment. To get 17,000 people crammed into Belmore on the weekend was just phenomenal. It was wonderful work by the staff and everybody at the Bulldogs to put the ground out there and get it ready for that one-off event. The playing surfaces undergo a restoration at the end of this season, as it does every 6 or 7 years, to make sure it's always match quality. But yeah, it was a lovely day for all the fans out there. A lot of nostalgia. They had a reunion on the Saturday for ex-players, and many of those came to the game on the Sunday. And it was just a wonderful afternoon. It was a pity the result didn't go their way. The Bulldogs threatened a couple of times to get the money, but they just fell short, and Dragons were a bit too good. But for that sort of support for the venue and the club and the team, despite the fact that they've been through such difficult. I mean, we lost our coach 2 weeks ago, so it's a difficult time for the Bulldogs. But the supporter base is there, and the love for Belmore will always be there. It'll always be our spiritual home. At the moment, we've got big plans for a new training facility to be built out of Belmore, so that the Bulldogs are always associated with the Belmore area. And naturally, home games and corporate hospitality and different demands mean that the Homebush Stadium and the Acor Stadium has to be their home ground. But judging by the response on the weekend, there is certainly an appetite for games to be played back in the local area there. They tend to ignore the parking difficulties and everything else that happens. It was great business for Belmore, the business sector there, and all the coffee shops and cafes and everything was full. The restaurants were full, and people in the park and walking to and from the club, and getting the train to the game, and the train going past the action 4 or 5 times during the afternoon. It's just the little ground built by the railway tracks, Belmore, the old Bulldog home ground. It was a wonderful day.
Indeed. All right, let's have a look at the games this weekend. We've only got 4 because of Origin, of course. You'll see them, we see 3 of them here on 9. Starting with tonight's game, Titans versus Cowboys, with Peter Basaltis and the team up there on the Gold Coast. Now, David Fifita and Tino are out of the Gold Coast team. Fifita injured, Tino in Origin. And a real test here for North Queensland, who have no Nanai, no Cotter, no Holmes, and no Dearden, who is 18th man for Queensland, but they do get Jason Taumalolo back.
Yep. They've been. It's good for this club to be in such a strong position heading into Origin, isn't it? I think that's really important. When you know that you're going to have Origin representation. You want to be winning games leading into the Origin period, and that also gives your club a bit of a list, because there'll be fellas here that are sitting in behind Origin quality players, obviously looking to get a run in the top grade and don't get it. Your club's preparing for it for some time, and it's still a good looking side. They've got momentum, and they're going to be hard to beat. The Gold Coast just haven't proven they can win games at the moment. This is an opportunity during the Origin period to probably make a little bit of a mark, but I'm still going to favour the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have just got too much creativity and too much energy and too much confidence at the moment. I'm not sure what the betting is saying on the game, but I just feel as though that they're favourites for mine, and I expect them to win again.
Our mates at BlueBet have got the prices up here, and I'm just going to grab them because they do a great job in sponsoring our podcast. $1.52 North Queensland, $2.52 Gold Coast.
They agree with me, see? Or I agree with them, one or the other.
The Phil Gould Cup, Friday night football. Here on 9, Panthers versus Bulldogs, first versus 16th. Penrith, of course, have got To'o, Yeo, Luai, Martin, Cleary, and Crichton all missing. So if Canterbury are ever to beat the Panthers, you'd have to imagine this would be the occasion on which they do it. Penrith $1.32 favourites, Canterbury $3.40. Manly versus the Warriors. This game's the Saturday night fixture. Now, Manly $1.52, Warriors $2.52. They're proving very hard to catch, the Warriors. Manly were pretty brave, weren't they? Losing Turbo, and then still putting up a good fight there against Parramatta a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, they're a good, tough footy club, and we know they've got a good, tough coach, and he'll be certainly doing everything in his power to try and get a victory for Manly, who are obviously without now Trbojevic for the rest of the season. We need to stop talking about that. They've just got to get on with it, and they've got the ability to nut out tough wins. The Warriors just can't seem to close a sale. They get into games and they get themselves in position to win, but can't seem to close it out at the back end, or they contribute sometimes to their own defeat more than their opposition do. They're very frustrating to watch because there's a lot of talent in that side and they're dangerous at any time. But if you had to have a tip for your life, I would have to tip Manly to beat them this weekend. Warriors are capable of anything. If they can ever get to the point of an 80-minute performance and managing the scoreboard and the clock going down to the back end of the game, they'll win a lot more games. But right at the moment, they can't close a sale. Where, seeing Josh Schuster at 5'8" is interesting for me. That's where he wants to play. That's the position he wants to play in. Kieran Foran, for me, he's obviously a 6. He's never really excelled at 7, but he's got great experience. And if he hands over the playmaking role in the team to Schuster, it'll be very interesting what he comes up with. I don't think there'll be much in this, and I know that the Warriors will be very, very competitive, but it's who's got the better game management at the back end of the game to close out the deal, and that's what you want from your top players. And right at the moment, Manly probably have a little better than that in that regard. So I'll tip the Sea Eagles to just get home.
Okay, Manly to win. And
they're favourites too. I'm looking here.
Mm-hmm. And then Sunday footy, Roosters $1.58, Raiders $2.40 at home. Canberra for a second week running down there at GIO Stadium. We'll be calling that here on 9. No White and no Papali'i for Canberra. No Tupou, no Tedesco, no Collins for the Roosters, but Joey Manu goes to fullback, where he's a real danger when he gets his hands on the ball. I mean, they obviously lose something without James Tedesco, but he's a more than adequate replacement there.
Well, it's a different type of game when Joseph Manu plays fullback, and we've seen him drop back into this position a number of times for the Roosters and excel. He's obviously a different sort of player to Tedesco, but he marches to the beat of his own tune, and he's got a different skill set and he's a competitor too. He comes forward to try and win the game. He doesn't stand back and wonder. You look at those omissions for the Canberra Raiders. They actually won a couple of games without Jack Whiten recently, so they've shown they can do that. I just didn't know what to make of their last performance. I felt like they'd been building over a few weeks. They'd put a few wins together, and that was a great opportunity against Parramatta on the weekend, and they were
there to win it.
They were there to win it. But the second half, they were like spinning their wheels the whole time. Now, Was that the quality of the Parramatta performance? Were Parramatta just a little bit too good for them on the day and just didn't allow Canberra to play their game? Or did Canberra sort of shy at the winning post a little bit and couldn't quite get it done? I thought there was real effort from the Canberra. I thought Jack Whiten was outstanding. In a losing game, I think Jack Whiten forced his way into the Origin side with that performance. And Brad Fittler made the comment, he looked so fast and sharp.
Who are you tipping?
Hard one.
Roosters brilliant first half against Cronulla.
Roosters are showing signs of really putting something together formidable at the back end of the season, and over the years that's been Trent Robinson's modus operandi. His team builds during the course of the year. Now sometimes they don't get it exactly right, but when they do, they're very, very hard to beat. Come down to August and September. It's just the 80 minutes part of it at the moment. And, looking at what the Raiders did last week down there, I'm going to tip Rooster. Rooster.
Okay.
So I'm tipping Cowboy, Sea Eagle, Rooster this weekend.
And no tip in the Phil Gould Cup.
The Panthers have got 7 or 8 out and they're still $1.30. It's a bit daunting, isn't it?
What would the Phil Gould Cup look like? Have a horseshoe on top of it.
I don't know. Clown.
A clown mask on top.
That's what Ray Warren said. My rule book used to have had a clown picture on the front of it. Phil Gould rule book's got a clown on the front cover.
So next week, for listeners to our podcast, we're going to record early Thursday morning post Origin 1, so we can wrap it all up.
So we're not doing anything before Origin?
No.
Doing it after Origin?
We're going to do it. We're going to do Thursday morning.
At what time?
5:36 a.m. Gus.
Oh, that's okay.
We're going to get in here and get it out.
If the Blues win, I might just be getting home.
Yeah.
Those days are over. Yeah. I don't go out anymore. I don't drink anymore.
No. So early Thursday, we'll have a wrap up of Origin 1. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your reflections on the great career of Rabs, Gus. It was wonderful to listen to. There's so many great stories, and well done to Rabs on his retirement from live broadcasting. We'll be back with you for 6 Tackles with Gus next week. Have a good weekend.